Hi everyone, my name is Ash Herr. I'm a multimedia artist and creative technologist. I work in augmented reality and I think AR is one of the most exciting mediums for modern day artists. Before AR even came along, artists have always been interested in breaking down the boundaries between natural and artificial realities, which largely parallels the work being done in AR today. But apart from art, there are so many other use cases for AR. And the principles of what makes a magical AR experience is universal. So whether you're creating an art installation, an app, an interactive birthday card, or a game, I'm here to share with you today how to create those great mobile AR experiences. So at a high level, there are presently two types of mobile augmented reality experiences. You're either augmenting an object or you're augmenting a place. Augmented objects are things like face filters or making a poster, card, or some other 2D screen come to life. Augmented places are things like location-based tours, visualizing furniture in a space, or creating a fictional narrative. Regardless of what you are augmenting, there are 4 elements that you will need to consider in developing these experiences. They include considerations for screen, environment, motion, and illusion. One of the most common challenges for AR projects are the constraints set by the screen. Up until now, our 2D interfaces were primarily used for controlling 2D interactions. Now, a touch screen serves 3 purposes: for your 2D interactions, as a 3D cursor, and as a viewing window for your AR experience. And while it's tempting to call AR an immersive experience, we're still constrained by the limits of our screen. And because the screen is the window to our new world, it's important to maximize the visual display of it. Having too many controls clutters the interface and it distracts from the augmented experience. So keep the screen simple and consider Hicks' law, where the need to make decision increases with the number and complexity of choices. If we want our users to prioritize our experience, it's best to provide a simple and clean interface for the user to easily digest it. Here I'm showing the Adobe Aero interface, which I think does a good job of maximizing AR screen space. Another screen-related consideration is the comfortable-to-reach areas on a device. It's best to place your important controls in these easy-to-reach areas, and lately, more apps are utilizing the bottom of the screen for these important controls. Here are some examples where the primary interaction elements in augmented reality are located in those easy-to-reach areas. The second consideration is that mobile AR is an environmental medium. And because of the environmental variability in which users will experience your AR, it's always good to set expectations for what is required in the experience during onboarding. So when your user is getting started, set expectations on the ideal conditions for using your AR, like defining the amount of space needed or if there should be more than one user participating. This will prime your user for the best AR experience as you intended it. You can also provide contextual guidance if the environment is not good enough. ARCORE and ARKit both have built-in systems for light estimation, so if the environment is too dark or too bright, you can tell the user that they can try to find a better place to use your AR. On the screen here, I'm showing 2 examples where the user is asked to set up the scene correctly for the experience. On the left side of the screen, the user is asked to use the back-facing camera, and on the right side of the screen, the user is being asked to bring in another individual into the experience. These are examples from mobile apps in AR that I think do a good job. Host Separate app is reminding the user to stay alert of their surroundings. The AR Runner app here is asking you to choose the size of your play area, and the Lightspace app here has an effective video tutorial for using their app. And I think these apps do a good job in easing their user into the AR experience. Your environmental situation also influences how users interact within your AR. There are generally 2 categories here. It's either an experience for a private environment or a public one. In a private environment, like at home or at work, you can create longer user sessions with more complex interactions. Here, you'll also find that users are more willing to utilize their whole body for movement within the interactions. Portals are a good example of AR that thrives in private environments. AR portals encourage the user to explore and move around the real world to discover different elements of the AR scene. These generally take a bit more time to get through, especially when you're thorough. On the other hand, there are public environments, like the outdoors, where users are partial to shorter user sessions. This doesn't mean that long sessions should be out of the question, but it's good to have a balance between your 2D and 3D screens so that a user isn't too fatigued. Pokemon Go is a really good example of this. These interactions within our mobile AR window brings me to my next consideration, which is motion. We need to be mindful of how our user will be navigating in our AR experience. In mobile AR, there are 4 main ways in which a user moves within the AR space. They're either seated with their hands fixed, seated with their hands moving, standing, or moving around in a real-world space. But regardless of how the user is positioned, they will need to be holding a device in their hands. And these device types will also vary, creating a new challenge for accessibility. An iPhone 8 would be much easier to hold than an iPhone 12 Pro, which is easier to hold than an iPad. Holding a device for longer periods can be fatiguing, especially after the 30-second mark. Therefore, as a result, many great AR experiences have shorter sessions or built-in periods of downtime during the experience. One more thing to consider is that the context in which your user will be utilizing their AR experience matters. For example, an AR experience inside a grocery store may need to account for a user that would be holding a basket or pushing a cart in addition to holding their device. Another example is that if your experience is at an art gallery, it's likely that the user wouldn't need to hold the device at all. And so these factors would influence your user's ability to navigate within your AR space and how you present motion within the experience. Another good practice for motion in AR is to guide the user through the types and ranges of movements possible for the AR experience. This can be accomplished without sacrificing screen space by utilizing visual, motion, and animation cues. Not only do cues inform the user of what elements are designed to be interacted with, these visual cues also act as an accessibility option for users who would be hard of hearing. The example I'm showing on the screen here is of Squishy Hoops, an AR game where they do a really good job of introducing the different interactive actions that a user can take during their AR experience. So speaking of the different cue types, an example of a visual cue would be like highlighting recommended options or showing text that encourages you to follow a command, or placement guides for the tracking and placement of 3D objects. The examples that I'm showing on the screen here are both of instructional text. So motion cues are more prominent in face filters, where a user would be expected or instructed to move their head or open their mouth to trigger interactions within your AR experience. In the examples that I'm showing here, the user is being asked to turn their heads, which is also a natural movement, especially when it comes to face filters. Lastly, a good example of an animation cue is like the fox that was in Google Maps AR. Here, a fox would walk in front of you and help you navigate where to turn. I don't believe that this is still a feature in Google Maps AR today, but the subtle animations like these highlighted arrows do the job just as well. There are also times when you would choose not to include instructions as to encourage the user to move and discover the experience on their own. More often, this is seen in art installations or AR that is designed to be more experimental. And lastly, let's talk about the most important aspects of augmented reality, the illusion. Regardless of the aesthetic or style that you're going for, AR objects that engage with and reflect their environment are the ones that make AR magical. Incorporating things like shadows, lighting, occlusion, reflection, and collision all support the illusion of your AR. For 3D objects, attention to detail really matters. For models that you want to look real, use physically based rendering texture models, add visual noise to a texture so that it's not just a repeating pattern, and utilize normal maps to achieve a more realistic look. It's also important to note that these objects can get heavy, so it's best to minimize the size of these textures as much as possible so that your scene can load faster. You can reduce the size by using compression tools like Draco or reducing the polygon count of your objects. Furthermore, light and shadow are also critical in creating realism in AR, so be sure to reflect environmental lighting conditions onto your virtual objects, cast object shadows, and add reflections onto surfaces to create that more realistic look. I found that the best place to position light sources is overhead at the 12 o'clock position, and it's also likely to be more congruent with the lighting conditions that of your user, as opposed to directional lighting. Lastly, sound is also a wonderful way to delight in AR by setting the scene, creating a mood, and adding to the illusion. You can also use sound to guide your user around the virtual space or as a tool in confirming interactive elements within your 3D space. As you can see, there are many ways and combinations in creating engaging augmented reality. There's also so much more here on building great AR experiences in regards to shaders, textures, animations, and interactions, but that is a talk for another day. Today, we spoke to considerations for screen, environment, motion, and illusion factors in building your AR experience. And keep in mind, AR is still evolving and there is so much more to be created. So if you're interested in creating an augmented reality, there are a number of great tools out there to help you get started on the right track. I'll speak to several of these development tools first. So first we have ARCORE, which is free, and their latest version allows for cloud anchors, motion tracking, environmental understanding, light estimation, which isn't really different from what ARKit also offers, but the ARKit SDK is limited to iOS devices and also offers people occlusion, simultaneous front and back camera use, multiple face tracking, and collaborative sessions as an advantage to ARCORE. And then we have Unity, which has a really robust toolkit for AR development called the Unity AR Foundation, which includes core features from ARKit, ARCORE, Magic Leap, and HoloLens. And what's unique about the AR Foundation is that they let you take currently unavailable features with you whenever you switch between AR platforms. So if a feature is enabled on one platform but not another, they'll help you transition so that whenever you are switching platforms, you're not rebuilding the AR experience from scratch. And then we have Lens Studio by Snapchat, which is also incredibly robust and also has good documentation to get non-developers started in augmented reality. Another pro with Lens Studio is that you can quickly deploy your AR and Snapchats to its large user base. And lastly, I'll talk about Spark AR, which is Facebook's AR platform. I've been using Spark AR more often as of late, and similar to Lens Studio, Spark AR is also really great because much of the AR infrastructure is already built for you, and it's an easy way to distribute and share your work as it publishes your AR experience to its users on Facebook and Instagram. Next, I'll speak to some of the other tools that are more focused on creating the 3D content within your AR experience. I won't be speaking to all of them in the interest of time, but I'll start here with SKETCHFAB. And SKETCHFAB is a really great platform for discovering 3D objects. You can purchase or even find free 3D models to download here and incorporate into your AR experience. There are a ton of really great models here. And here we have QUILL and TiltBrush, which are both VR drawing tools where you can create 3D models, animate them, and then incorporate that into your AR. You can also get some pretty cool workflows here. And lastly here, Blender and Cinema 4D are both incredibly powerful 3D graphics tools for rendering, animation, and modeling. Blender is awesome because it's free and incredibly powerful. I've used it for modeling, sculpting, rigging, and rendering some of the 3D models that I've used in my AR, but both of these tools are really, really incredible. I'll close with this quote here, and I encourage you to go and create an AR. Create those experiences that are worth sharing. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to keep in touch. I would love to see the things that you make in AR. Hope you enjoy the rest of your conference, and thank you for tuning in. Take care.